All right, good evening. We will call the meeting of the Mount Lebanon Commission to order. Will you all join me for the pledge of allegiance, please?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Manager McGill, roll call, please.
Thank you, Mr. President. Commissioner Gorella.
Here.
Commissioner Randy.
Here.
Commissioner Silverman.
Here.
Commissioner Flynn.
Present. All right. And the first up on the agenda is the manager's announcements, followed by community highlights.
Thank you, Mr. President. Immediately preceding this meeting, the commission met in discussion session and received information on and discussed the following items. The commission actually interviewed applicants for the current commission vacancy for Ward 3. We have 3 very well qualified applicants. We received an update on various Alcosan issues from Gateway Engineers. I would expect another update of a similar nature, probably in December or January. And we also had time to actually get updates from commission on the activities of the various boards for who they are commission liaisons. Prior to that meeting, the commission met in executive session to receive legal advice from the solicitor. And immediately following tonight's meeting, we'll be going back into executive session to continue that conversation. The next meeting of the commission is actually a special meeting and will be held on Monday, October 17th. The meeting will begin at 7 p.m. in this room, and this is a special meeting of the commission regarding the 3rd Ward Commission vacancy. Commission will have a discussion regarding the candidates who they heard from this evening, and then make a decision at that meeting. The next adjourned meeting of the commission will be held on Tuesday, October 25th. That meeting will begin at 8 p.m. in this room. To participate in those meetings, you can either do that in person as you are here tonight. You don't need to pre-register, simply show up at the appropriate meeting time. And if you wish to speak at the meeting, please sign the sheet at the back of the room. Or you're able to participate, remotely via the Zoom webinar format. Again, you don't need to pre-register, simply click the link located on the meeting agenda on the municipal website. If you wish to speak during the citizens' comments or during public hearings, simply use the raise hand feature on Zoom and you'll be notified when it is your turn to speak. Thank you.
Thank you, Manager McGill. Sorry for the interruption there. Community highlights, Commissioner Silverman.
Thank you, Mr. President. Don't forget the Pumpkin Patch Parade is Saturday, October 29th at 11 a.m. If your group would like to be an official part of the parade, or you'd like to volunteer to be a mascot in one of our costumes, please call 412-343-3409 from 8:30 a.m. to 5 p.m. As always, Mount Lebanon's Trick or Treat will be on Halloween night from 6 to 8 p.m. Make sure the kids are visible to drivers, and please drive carefully to protect our families. October is National Disability Employment Awareness Month. Municipality of Mount Lebanon is a wonderful, welcoming place to work. You can find job postings on our website 24 hours a day at mountlebanon.org. Please save the date for the Mount Lebanon Veterans Observance, we should say. Veterans Day observance on Friday, November 11th at 4 p.m. at the Veterans Memorial off Cedar Boulevard at the Rec Center. The keynote speaker will be Mount Lebanon resident John Armstrong, a former sergeant who served with the 4th Infantry Division in Vietnam in 1967 and 1968. If you're out walking at dusk, dawn, or nighttime, please remember to wear bright, reflective, or illuminated clothing. Don't assume drivers can see you. And if you're driving at that time, please be alert. Another driving note, we are in the heart of the deer rut, which means deer can be more capricious and unpredictable around the road, especially in hours of low visibility. Please drive slowly and keep your eyes peeled. And finally, it's leaf collection season. Please rake your leaves to the curb the day before your regular trash pickup day. Yes, we'd love if the leaves came down on cue, but they don't. Also, bad weather slows municipal leaf crews. Please be patient as we do our best to clear the roads. Also, please do not rake your leaves to the curb after the leaf truck has just passed. So, but that's the report. So thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Silverman. Next up on the agenda is our junior commissioner, Amy Tan.
Good evening. As usual, I will begin my report with a brief update on high school activities. Congratulations to junior Sophia Cunningham and sophomore Sylvia Erickson on winning the 3A Whitfield title in doubles girls tennis. Good luck to them as they advance to the state competition. This past weekend, the high school band took a trip to New Jersey and Washington, D.C. They competed in the regional competition for Bands of America and also performed in front of the Lincoln Memorial. As for the high school orchestra, their annual string festival will take place on October 13th. Dr. Alexander D. will be the guest conductor. Lastly, I wanted to talk briefly about the high school environmental club. As they begin brainstorming projects for the year, they're considering attending some environmental sustainability board meetings. There are a lot of passionate high schoolers who are excited about the possibility of collaboration with the community, specifically within the ESP. Next, I would like to continue with some updates about the high school cafeteria services. Last week, I commented on student demands for the return of pre-pandemic menu options. With the help of Commissioner Ranney, I was able to reach out to the president of the school board. President Weiland kindly informed me that he looks forward to working for the return of these services. The board is still navigating the evolving landscape of the pandemic, and they strive to bring these cafeteria services back in a safe way. Additionally, I learned about the superintendent's hopes to focus more on sustainability by possibly modifying and adapting pre-pandemic menu options. The information I received did not disclose any specifics or current plans of action in place, but I look forward to seeing the possible developments in our high school cafeteria. In the meantime, I will continue to listen to student input, and I hope to engage in further discussions about the return process. This concludes my report for October 11th. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Commissioner Tan, and thank you, Commissioner Ranney, for assisting in that process. Obviously continue to be very impressed with everything that the high school, or that the students are doing. And I will tell you that we have already coordinated with one of the students who expressed an interest in participating at the ESB meeting. So he has the information to join on Thursday. All right, next up on the agenda, we have citizens' comments. This is an opportunity for any resident to express an opinion on any topic pertaining to local government. The commission enjoys hearing from the public on various issues and learning about items to address in the future. If you have specific questions, we will try to answer them at the end of your comments. If we can't, we commit to getting you the answers as soon as possible. When I call your name, please come to the podium to address the commission. State your name and address for the record. In fairness, we ask each speaker to share their thoughts for 5 minutes. The community is as good as each person in this room. We work together to make this a community that we can all be proud of, and we hope that the dialogue remains respectful. We also appreciate the audience's efforts to refrain from any behavior that is disruptive or might intimidate free speech. And first up this evening is Dr. Hoon.
Bill Hoon, 456 Coolidge Avenue. It's funny you mentioned this public safety thing on the streets, Steve, because I was approached 2 weeks ago by a woman who was attempting to cross the street at the light at the public safety building and Rawlers. She was over on the Rawlers side. She waited until she saw the stick figure on the other side of the street and then stepped into the street. Now, something told this woman, look left. She looked left. This guy in an SUV blasting through a red light right beside her. She barely had time to hop back on the curb. This kind of crap goes on all the time in Mount Lebanon. And I've heard Ian say that public safety is our #1 concern. Don't see it here. The people here a long time know how to cross streets, and it's not always at lights. Although I guess we could get a ticket for that. Okay, last meeting. I mentioned that a local politician had told me that 31 millionaires had left the community, sold their residences and were gone in 2007. Well, that wasn't the first and the last. They didn't just disappear in 2007. He mentioned this because I said to him that I knew 2 multimillionaires who had left the community. And they had both mentioned this is not the place for them. They didn't appreciate living on a firing range. They didn't appreciate going to a park and thinking, might be some bonehead out here ready to kill me. I had a friend in Upper St. Clair that was running through one of their parks, and he looked up, and there's an idiot with a bow in a tree right in front of him. He sold his house and was out of Upper St. Clair 2 months later. People don't appreciate this garbage, guys, especially when there's absolutely no need for it. I've told you before, there's over 100 articles out there on gardening with deer. This has always been a gardening issue. In 2004, when Barbara Logan brought this up, she was sitting right over there where Mindy is. And she said, we have a deer problem. Amazing. I looked at some other people, they looked at me and what's this? Everybody's thinking, what's this? Well, it seems Logan had a deer problem. Therefore, everybody in this community had her problem. Well, let me tell you, folks, your problems are not my problems. And I take care of my problems. And I don't need somebody telling me we have a problem. But there she was. And we've been riding this dead horse ever since, haven't we? People aren't happy with it. 2007 wasn't the first time that millionaires were bailing out of Mount Lebanon. And you might say, yeah, so what? They sell their houses, we get other people in. No big deal. You know what? I've known some of these people. I've known these PhDs. These are the people that build communities. They're not old women with a gardening problem. And I'm sorry to say that her problems are not my problems. And your problem is not my problem. Deal with your own issues. Pull up your pants, you know? Take care of things. I also ran along a street, Marlin recently. And I started looking between the houses. 80% of them have fences in their backyards. If these people don't want to deal with deer, they put up a fence.
Thank you, Dr. Hill.
That's what an adult does, folks.
All right, next up this evening is Dave Lackner.
Good evening, I'm Dave Lackner at 729 Brafferton Drive. I have a statement, a couple statements and some questions. And these are directed obviously at the commissioners. Dear commissioners, my expectations prior to reviewing the Ascend Lebo survey was an unbiased questionnaire designed to be inclusive and communicate clearly to all the Mount Lebanon residents. Unfortunately, I was surprised at what I read. To begin with, why would you engage a consulting company that was based originally in Australia to provide a survey to Mount Lebanon residents? Surely we all know the issues and agendas that need attention. This prompted me to research in greater depth about the firm you chose called socialpinpoint.com. This organization appears to not only function as a consulting company, but also as a social justice activist organization with clear political views. In the blog section of their homepage, I discovered several postings, including but not limited to the following: how diversity affects decision-making in communities. When we create new plans and policy, we hope to drive positive change in our communities. In essence, our intervention should push the community in positive direction, diverse representation in key decision-making. The key comments of driving change and our intervention should push the company, should push the community, has nothing to do with the spirit of the survey. Furthermore, the residents of Mount Lebanon should not expect their commissioners to push agendas or introduce radical intervention with preordained social goals. The simple fact is, this isn't a survey, but rather statements of suggested, biased, and deliberately vague content in an attempt to push through an agenda that may not accurately reflect the totality of the community's wishes. Here's a few examples. Mount Lebanon needs a dog park. Rather than, would you be supportive of a dog park in Mount Lebanon? Safety for cyclists is important rather than, do we have safe streets for cyclists? Every home in Mount Lebanon should be within a 20-minute walk, bike ride, or transit ride to a daily destination. So what's the source of this requirement? Why aren't cars mentioned? People of all income levels should be able to live in Mount Lebanon. What group isn't currently represented? If, for example, you intend on creating incentivizing low-income housing, for example, in Mount Lebanon, then be bold enough to go ahead and say it. Mount Lebanon should offer a wide range of housing options for people of all stages of their lives. What housing options aren't being represented? Any redevelopment or a resident should result in equal or greater number of housing units that were previously there. What exactly is this a question attempting to get at? In my experience, surveys and questionnaires are designed to gather feedback, not to promote preordained points of view. In my opinion, the comments, questions are a deliberate attempt to mislead residents, Mount Lebanon residents, and promote agenda that is held by a small majority, if that, of residents. Proof positive are the approximate 900 or so responses from the survey confirmed by Mr. McMeans. Even assuming we could trust a survey authored by a social activist organization, 900 responses is an insufficient amount given the extraordinary plans you're proposing. These 900 represent less than 3% of the 34,075 residents according to the 2020 census. There are also approximately 13,070 households in our township. Either way, your response rate is somewhere between 2.6% and 6.9%, hardly sufficient for such consequential decisions. If you wish to gather input from majority of residents, insert it into their existing mail like property tax assessments or tax bills as I had requested at the September meeting. This came with some resistance from Mr. McMean, who stated that it would cost $8,000 to mail it. In my opinion, this is a small price to pay to gain feedback from the majority of Mount Lebanon residents. As our elected commissioners, you have a duty and responsibility to carry out decisions which are in the best interest of Mount Lebanon citizens. It's not a platform to promote personal and political agenda, and what has taken place here is a perfect example of that decision. I am therefore strongly recommending Mount Lebanon commissioners remove this survey from their website and respectfully request response to my question above by one or all the Mount Lebanon commissioners at the next meeting. Furthermore, I would request my comments regarding the bias and misleading commentary within the survey be reflected in the minutes seen by all residents. I have a copy
Thank you,
for
Mr.
all
Lacker.
5 of you.
I just want to, I want to respond real quickly. I agree with Mr. Lackner that we probably could have done a better job sending this survey to additional residents. We did the same thing with the communication survey, which was done 2 years ago. now? More than 2 years ago.
Yeah.
Which went out to every household in the municipality. And we did receive a pretty good response there. I do believe your comments to be, some of them related to the questioning, politically motivated and certainly biased, at the least disingenuous, because the survey questions that you mentioned all come with a question to residents whether they agree or disagree on a scale. So the survey is not framed so that we're giving that statement and putting that statement forward as a statement of fact. It's a question. That's what a survey is. And we ask residents to respond to that question. Do you agree with this statement? Do you disagree with this statement? And there's a scale to which they either agree or disagree. That information is then given feedback. So for example, to use one of the ones that you mentioned, every home in Mount Lebanon should be within a 20-minute walk, bike ride, or transit ride of daily destinations such as grocery stores, parks, schools, and services. Respondents are able to say, I strongly disagree with that. I disagree with that. Neutral or I don't know, I agree or I strongly agree. So once all that feedback is tallied, we can tell if the respondents actually agree with that statement or disagree. And then that information works its way into the decisions that we make, whether it's part of the comprehensive plan or any other planning. So I don't think I would characterize this as we're making social justice statements as a way to try to get residents to tell us something that we already know. That's not the aim of this survey. And that's not how the questions are posed either. So I think the way you phrase some of those questions were a little bit perhaps politically motivated or motivated in a way to state something that's just not there.
The questions aren't clear.
Well,
They're
I
just
would-
not clear.
Okay.
When you want to make a comment, when you say want to ask for a diverse range of housing options for people of all stages of their life, what housing options aren't being represented? Clearly, there must be some group that's not being represented, or you wouldn't have bothered to ask the question. All I'm asking you to do is be honest up front and clear about the questions completely. They're incomplete. They're misleading.
Well, I would just remind that, as Mr. McMeans pointed out at the last meeting, yeah, this is a multi-stage process, right? These surveys build on each other, right? We learn, we get more questions, we dig further into this process. But this isn't the end of the process. This is a multi-step process to be gathering feedback to ensure that we are building for the community that we want for the future, that the whole community wants. Again, multi-step process, again, and I agree, to Commissioner Grill's point and your point, does the next survey, include mail? Yeah, potentially. I think that's worth looking at. But again, multiple steps, multiple, uses of technology, engaging residents in different ways, whether it's, at different, events, or it's through an online tool. Again, it's an evolutionary process. We have engaged a consultant, who I believe utilized that tool, that you refer to. The consultant is nationally recognized in the work around comprehensive plans for their efforts and how they develop these platforms. So we've engaged a highly reputable firm to do this with us. So again, it's a multi-step process, but feedback is definitely always welcome, and we do appreciate ensuring that the voices are heard as we move forward.
I'll conclude this. It's a little bit frustrating to me that 2 Fridays ago, I took a half day off and I went to Uptown Mount Lebanon. I spoke with 5 prominent business owners. Do you know how many of them know about the Susan Lebo site for the survey? 0. Not one. Mr. McMean said it's in the Mount Lebanon magazine. I don't see it in the Mount Lebanon magazine. Mr. McMeans?
We will make a point to make sure that the business owners are aware as well.
Okay,
Thank you,
fair enough.
Mr. Lackner. All right, next up this evening, thank you, is Rob Mackey.
Good evening, Rob Mackey, 610 Royce Avenue. Speaking tonight on behalf of our Parks Advisory Board. First, I'm going to read a statement that was voted on last week in our Parks meeting and approved. The Parks Advisory Board is mandated to protect Mount Lebanon's trees along our streets and open spaces and in our forests. Furthermore, the PAB is responsible for the overall habitat of our forested land and the value that land delivers to the community. These responsibilities intersect with Mount Lebanon's public safety goal of reducing deer vehicular interactions. Deer destroy street and park trees by antler rub and overbrowsing. Excess deer degrade our forests by consumption of saplings and tree seeds and nuts. Deer suppress regeneration of native understory and herbaceous plants, exacerbating erosion and stormwater runoff. Over decades, Mount Lebanon's deer population has accelerated the decline in our forests' vitality. Much of our land is now completely covered by invasive species. Thickets of honeysuckle and privet are unwelcoming to residents. Our observations in Mount Lebanon's parks align with numerous studies on the inverse relationship of deer density and forest health. Excess deer pressure hampers efforts by public works to maintain the health of our street trees and efforts by volunteers to improve our forested areas. Deer protection costs money to install and time for volunteers to maintain. The Parks Advisory Board wants to support Mount Lebanon's deer management program. We reviewed program metrics and contractor reports and had our public discussion with Municipal Planner McMeans. Guided by a specific request by the contractor, Suburban Wildlife Management, in the 2021-2022 season report, Parks Advisory Board recommends making Williamsburg and Sunset Hills parks available to Mount Lebanon's deer management program. That is the official statement. Anecdotally, kudos to Mount Lebanon staff, police, everyone involved in the program. Just happened to be last week on KDKA. Andy Sheehan was reporting from Riverview Park with 50 deer in the background, and there were several testimonies by park managers and concerned environmental groups about the destruction that is currently occurring in some city parks. And Mount Lebanon was cited specifically as a community that's ahead in this regard. So should any of you have any questions or want to see the impact of deer in our forest, the Parks Advisory Board would be happy to take a walk with any of you. So thank you.
Mr. Mackey, thank you. And thank you to everybody on the Parks Advisory Board for your work. We do appreciate all of your efforts. Thanks. All right, that can, Nick, are there any comments online?
Nobody has their hand. Wait, one person just raised their hand. Hold on 1 second.
All right.
Gretchen, good evening. Please unmute yourself and state your name and address for the record. You will have 5 minutes for your comments. You will hear a tone when your time has concluded.
All right, this is not Gretchen. This is her husband, Tim. Tim Donahue, 249 Park Entrance Drive. My comment is something on a little lighter side. I think one of the greatest assets to our community is the community gardens. I've been gardening there for 12 years. It's a very nice place. I'm not sure if I don't recognize any of you guys as being gardeners over there, but it's a nice setup. Unfortunately, over the last 10 years or so, the garden's divided into two separate gardens. If you don't know, the top one, there's 36 gardens in the top area and 30 gardens in the bottom. Now, the 30 gardens in the bottom are called a no-till area, where gardeners can grow things organically and keep the same plot from year to year, unless they decide not to. Those lower gardens have come into real disrepair. Originally, they were probably nicely set up near the woods that are down there, but since, over the last 10 years, the woods have come up against the garden fence itself, and probably 17 of those 30 gardens down there are completely in the shade all the time. Also the trees, I know. I love trees too, but when they fall on fences and capricious deer start running into the gardens, it's not a good thing for gardeners at all. But I think something has to be looked at there to see if we could do something about, getting that lower garden into a better place in the same area. It also needs better accessibility. There is one ramp that comes from the golf course parking lot. It's pretty steep, and there's a lot of older people that garden over there, myself included. But I saw a couple of people fall down that hill this year, which is not a good thing. So it needs a better approach. It needs some vast improvements in the lower garden. And I think if more people knew about this, I mean, I'm looking at the girl from the environmental club that was on before. I mean, there's a lot of good things that can be done in that area instead of, just having a bunch of weeds and that's about all I have to say. It's just something I think really needs addressed.
Oh, thank you, Tim. No, and this has been raised, I know, multiple times through various boards. As a gardener myself and someone who's grown up in an area with very active community gardens, I know how valuable they are to building community and just the joy they bring. So it is something that we are, I know, actively looking at and discussing, and hopefully we can continue to move this forward and make some improvements as we go into budget this year.
Do we have a maintenance line item for community gardens in the budget?
I'm not sure if we have a specific line item.
Nothing.
We do not.
Yeah.
It's kind of just been, maintained. Oh, so they do work like when they can, that kind of stuff. And then residents just kind of take care of it. It's a really nice.
Yeah, so
nice
Tim, just for your reference, the finance director said that the budget for that area is under the golf course. But something that we will definitely be looking at going into budget this year, because we do know it is important and a lot of residents really do enjoy using it. So thank you for your comment.
You're welcome.
All right, that concludes citizen comments this evening. I believe, Nick, can I confirm that with you?
Yes, that's confirmed.
All right, thank you, Nick. All right, next up on the agenda this evening is item number 4, Commissioner, please.
Thank you, Mr. President. Consideration of the minutes from the adjourned meeting held September 28, 2022. Move to approve the minutes.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried. Item number 5 on the agenda, Commissioner Rani.
Thank you, Mr. President. Public hearing on ordinance bill number 4-22, increasing the stormwater fee and extending the effective date. Mount Lebanon currently assesses a stormwater fee, which was established in 2011 and has not been increased. As a result of higher costs and an escalating increase in the demand for stormwater controls and facilities throughout the municipality, there is a need to increase the fee to a level needed to sustain the objectives of the stormwater fund. The proposed ordinance increases the fee 12.5% a year beginning in January of 2024 for 5 years, after which time a consumer price index increase will apply. The proposed ordinance also extends the sunset provision in the original ordinance indefinitely. This ordinance was introduced September 28th, 2022. I move to conduct the public hearing.
All right, we will conduct a public hearing. There is no one at this time that has signed up to comment. May we just move to?
Oh,
Oh,
yeah, there we go.
Mr. McMeans rushes to the podium.
Ian McMeans, municipal planner. As is typical, the planning board reviewed the capital improvement plan as being in accordance with the adopted comprehensive plan at their meeting on August 16th.
That's
actually the next
Oh,
Yeah.
sorry.
Do you have another one?
No, no,
All right.
Okay, well,
scratch that.
I have a finance question. So can you explain to the public what?
Would it be helpful to have just this memo that was provided to the commission have?
Sure, or I just want the public to know, what does that mean? What is 12.5% a year is gonna look like? I don't know who that would be to,
I was gonna say,
finance.
I was gonna defer to the finance director.
The rates in that memo.
I was gonna say that the rates are in the memo. So for the public, on January 1, 2024, the rate would go to $9 per ERU. January 1st, 2025, it would go to $10.13. January 1 of 2026, it would go to $11.39. January 1st of 2027, it would go to $12.81. And then January 1st of 2028, it would go to $14.42. And then each January thereafter, the monthly charge will increase with the formula that's done by year.
So January 1, 2024 is $9 per month,
Per
payable
Correct.
once a year.
per ERU. So for purpose of comparison, the residents of owners in a single family residential unit are currently paying $8 per month, $96 per year. In January of 2024, that would go to $9 per month. And then so on from there. But
Apparently there's a call to the bull.
I was gonna say,
All right, Mr. McCreary.
No, typically this is a bill that you receive in January from our office, payable at discount in February, with a face value paid at, April 30th. Right now, it's currently $96 primarily for the residential, and those are the primary sets of our bills is the residential. So you receive a $96 bill in January. So that goes up 12.5% each year, with the final bill, the fifth year being $173 instead of $96 for this year. And then thereafter be adjusted with CPI. What we're really trying to do is get to a $2 million spend number for the stormwater fund. So instead of doing that in 1 year and raising the price to that $2 million number of what we're trying to get to, we've noticed over our spending patterns, it's been putting a pressure on the general fund to fund more and more stormwater specific projects. So by increasing this fee, it will give more capacity to the stormwater fund to alleviate the general fund, therefore using general fund tax dollars for other types of projects that are not specific to stormwater fees or stormwater projects.
Thank you.
Are there other questions or comments? Hearing none?
Just close the public hearing.
Yeah, we close the public hearing.
Yeah.
All right, and we move on to item number 6. Commissioner Silverman.
Thank you, Mr. President. Public hearing on the Capital Improvement Program, CIP. It's required by the Charter of the Capital Improvement Program, CIP, for 2023 to 2027, was submitted to Commission on August 1, 2022. A public hearing is required to be held on this program prior to the issuance of the manager's recommended budget.
All right, and we will conduct the public hearing. Mr. McNeils, would you like to say your piece again?
Sure, I get so excited to make my one public comment a year. That I just had to run to the podium. The planning board did review the 2023 to 2027 capital improvement plan at their August 16th meeting and ratified that it is in accordance with the adopted comprehensive plan. Thanks. I'll be back next year.
Thank you, Mr. McNeils. Next up, we have, and I apologize, I'm gonna mess this up, Tom Shurchuk. Subject.
Tom Subchuck, 519 Lyndhurst Avenue. Good evening, commissioners and members of the public, and thank you for the opportunity to speak. I wanted to speak very briefly on the proposed capital improvements program budget for 2023 to 2027, with emphasis on the projects in there for the passive use parks. First off, I want to thank the municipality and recommend for the commissioners continued consideration the $255,000 that's proposed for Rob Hollow access off of Kelso Road, which I think will be a welcome addition and make that park far more accessible and put to good use the purchase of the land that commissioners made about 8 or 10 years ago. Secondly, I was excited to see the $655,000 in there for McNeely Park access improvement. I've only been over there once or twice because, as you're well aware, it ain't easy to get to. So that's great, and I fervently hope, as do you, I'm sure, that $630,000 in grant money comes from someplace, so that can actually move forward. I do have one concern in the budget, and that's the 1.9 million proposed in 2026 for the turfing of John Doctor Field over at Bird Park. That's a large investment, and I'm concerned and will be interested to see as that moves forward with more detailed designs and engineering studies. The impacts on stormwater runoff and the impacts downstream within the park. It also is concerning, while I realize the importance of that field, and my son played soccer there when he was a kid, so I'm hardly one to fuss about the fact that the field's there. But it's a large, currently living, organic area that could be basically turned inorganic, and with creative stormwater runoff technologies, the Gateway or whoever I'm sure will come up with, the downstream factors may be attenuated, but it's still a concern. And I also have concerns, and we'll be interested to see as that project moves forward, the cost effectiveness of that. It's a 1.9 million. That's a big ticket item, obviously, at least in the scheme of things for the passive use parks, looking at the rest of the budget. And, it's an ongoing maintenance item. I noticed that the replacement fields are on tap for Seymour and Middle Field at about $600 or about $970,000. And I went back and looked at the records from when those were put in, and I think the estimates at the time were something like 600,000 for a replacement. And some apples to oranges, and Lord knows inflation's crazy, but that number gave me a little pause too. So I hope we can look at some more cost-effective solutions to keeping the soccer field healthy and safe for the kids, and also keep it as a green and organic space. Couple other very quick points on the proposed capital improvements program. As I said, I was very pleased to see the positive additions. There are a couple of things that aren't in there, and I realize that may be because there aren't firm numbers yet, but it would be nice to see some placeholders for the following, including there's nothing in there in terms of how the recently completed, as I understand it, perhaps incorrectly, accepted and Parks Master Plan, gets folded in to the next 5 years, the capital budget. So, there are things for each of the parks, and I didn't see much in there in terms of that, even if it's a, conceptual design estimate of 100 grand here and 500 grand there or something. It seems like that ought to be accounted for. Similarly, and I don't know the status of it, I know you had an RFP out for a forestry and invasive management plan for the parks, and there's nothing in the proposed CIP in terms of implementing that when that's done. And hopefully moving forward, that will be accounted for. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your comments. Really appreciate it. All right, and do we have any online comments, Nick?
I have nobody with their hand raised.
All right, thank you. All right, then we will close the public hearing. All right, next up on the agenda is item number 7. Commissioner Grella, please.
Thank you, Mr. President. Introduction of an ordinance bill number 5-22, amending the penalty for violations in Chapter X, Part 12 of the Municipal Code of Ordinances. Mount Lebanon amends fees annually through a fee resolution. There are some fees that need to be amended through ordinance. The ordinance amends violation amounts in Chapter X, Part 12 of the Municipal Code, and adds further clarification for payments when parked at a metered space. The primary violation amounts that will change are related to parking violations. Primary parking violations such as expired meters and overnight parking will increase by $5 beginning January 1, 2023. I introduce ordinance bill number 5-22.
All right, so introduced. We will set the public hearing for October 25th, 2022. Item number 8, Commissioner Randy, please.
Thank you, Mr. President. Consideration of a labor contract agreement with the Mount Lebanon Career Firefighters Association Local 5089. The current labor contract with the Mount Lebanon Career Firefighters Association expires December 31st, 2022. The new agreement is for a 5-year period ending December 31st, 2027. The new agreement provides for wage increases, changes in compensation, healthcare contributions, post-employment benefits, and clarification of certain employment benefits. I move to approve the collective bargaining agreement by and between the municipality of Mount Lebanon and the Mount Lebanon Career Firefighters Association Local 5089 and authorize the proper municipal officials to execute the agreement.
Second.
All right, it's been moved and seconded, and I believe we have representatives who wish to make a comment.
Good evening. Lauren Hughes. I am an employee of the Mount Lebanon Fire Department, and I have Kurt Christopher here with me, also an employee. And together we represent the Career Firefighters Association Local 5089 President, which I am, and Kurt is the chair of the Wage and Policy Committee. On behalf of the Mount Lebanon Career Firefighters and our Wage and Policy Committee, I want to thank the Commission for placing our labor contract on your agenda tonight. The firefighters and your staff have a huge investment and commitment to the process. Through interest-based bargaining, we have reached an agreement. And the interest-based bargaining process is unique. And we are very fortunate that we have such an excellent relationship with you, your municipal staff, and the fire department administration. Interest-based bargaining allows both sides to use open and honest discussion, present different ideas and solutions to reach an agreement that is for each side's issues and concerns. And it provides a win-win for both parties that are involved. And we just want to say thank you. We appreciate the fact that the commission allows your staff, Ian McNeans, Andy McCreary, and Bonnie Cross, to run the contract process under the direction of Manager Keith McGill. And it allows us all to work together. And we also want to thank Fire Chief Nick Sahida and the Assistant Chief Sean Daniels for their continued support and leadership that allows all of us to work together. And we believe this contract will help Mount Lebanon Fire Department to retain its highly qualified, experienced, and motivated staff and continue to recruit the best talent possible to maintain the safety and security of our residents, their visitors, and our commercial and residential real estate. And we thank you for your support tonight.
Thank you very much. And I have to just say that I think that we have all been very impressed with the interest-based bargaining. We really appreciate your coming to the table and being active participants and being willing to participate in that process. The fact that it's been so successful really is a testament to both you guys and the municipal staff for undertaking it. Having worked with different fire agencies and participating in regional activities, this is a premier fire department that really comes down to all of you. The people doing the work and the representation that you provide of the municipality and for the residents. And so this is fantastic. We really do appreciate all the effort.
I also want to just add to that, Andrew, if I can.
Please.
My opinion is that we have the hardest working, best prepared, and best trained fire department anywhere. And I am convinced of that, and having dealt with members of the team and having sat through the certifications that we just had in the past year and hearing that from people coming from all over the country, telling us, people that have 30 years experience working with fire departments and doing those certifications, through all the training that you do in our schools. I played adult league softball this year with several firefighters that were on my team. And my 6-year-old daughter calls one of them Firefighter Juice Box. That's not his name. And I'm not sure I entirely want to know how he got that nickname, but that's the kind of relationship that our members of our fire department have with members of the community. And I think it's amazing and it is appreciated. I certainly appreciate it. And I just wanted to say that.
I wish I could add to something specific like Greg had, but thank you for the good work that you all do.
We really appreciate it. And thanks for coming out tonight.
All right. And with that, it has been moved and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. And with that, we are adjourned. Have a good evening, everybody. Thank you for coming out.